So if you caught my last video, then you're well aware that I am producing an animation of Gojo vs Makima. A very popular matchup, and for a good reason. There's a lot of room for debate with it that I want to address in a really flashy way. By the way, definitely check out the teaser on my channel, link in the description below. Now what's the point of all this? Well, when I announced this, I got one particular comment a few times, and that comment was, why this matchup instead of Makima versus Sukuna? I assume the reasoning is because they're both villains, and I got other comments along similar lines. But this is the recommendation I got the most. Now, there's a lot of reasons for why I'm not doing this one, but the big one is it's just not nearly as interesting. I mean, Sukuna just kinda slaughters here because he counters her main assets. Alright, let me explain. Now, I want to make it clear that Makima isn't weak by any means, but one of her biggest assets is her contract with the Prime Minister of Japan. That contract makes it so that any attack made against her is transferred over to a citizen of Japan in the form of an appropriate illness or injury. And since Chainsaw Man took place in 1997, when the population was over 126 million people, she needs to take lethal damage that many times to really die. Now, there are other counters to this contract, but we'll get into that. Anyway, like I said, Makima isn't weak. Hell, she was strong enough to damage the Darkness Devil, made it bleed severely just by pointing. And the Darkness Devil is a primal fear, one of the strongest devils. To put that into perspective, another primal fear, the Falling Devil, was causing worldwide gravitational anomalies just by being on Earth. Like, it doesn't even seem like she was trying to do that, it was just happening while she had other goals. So yeah, I think Makima could do some solid damage on Sukuna. But while his healing factor through reverse curse technique isn't as good as Makima's contract, he can heal damage very quickly, and his ability to counterattack is a lot more reliable. You see, Makima's weakness is her terrible durability. She easily takes lethal damage from even normal guns. Guns are, by the way, considered strong enough to take out a grade 3 curse in Jujutsu Kaisen, which are significantly weaker than Sukuna. Sukuna's slashes won't just hurt Makima, they will eviscerate her, and there's no reason he can't keep up the onslaught. Now obviously, Makima can heal from his attacks. Again, any attack made against her just ain't gonna work. Gets transferred over until she runs out of victims, and that tends to take a while when she has millions. Now, Makima isn't just gonna get shredded, of course. Even though Sukuna's slashes are invisible, Makima could feasibly dodge them with her use of the Future Devil. And if she feels reasonably threatened, she practically has an army of devils at her command to take some of the heat off of her. And this brings us to one of Sukuna's greatest advantages, and that is his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. All of those slashing attacks, both cleave and dismantle, thoroughly tear apart anyone in its range. And that range happens to be a whopping 200 meters. That army that Makima can just summon on a whim, gone, reduced to nothing in seconds. And Makima can't just get out of this very easily, she'd be taking constant damage. And unlike Gojo that could just heal through it, Makima's contract doesn't work like that. For Makima, the attack has to go out, do its damage, and then be undone. And in that time, she would already be taking a dozen other slashes that need to be healed the same way. Another thing is that Makima can't dodge them with a Future Devil because attacks done with a domain expansion have a sure hit effect. They don't travel any distance, the attack just appears on her. Now again, Makima isn't weak, make Sukuna take enough damage and the domain expansion breaks. And it wouldn't be hard. Apparently, she can just point at someone and cause massive internal injury. Do that to Sukuna and Malevolent Shrine breaks. But the problem is that Malevolent Shrine just doesn't let up. Constant attacks all over her body all the time. She can't do her little finger point if she doesn't have any hands. And it's not like it's gonna be whittling down Makima's contract slowly, one attack at a time. Malevolent Shrine attacks all over the body all at once. Any slash that would be considered a normally lethal injury to Makima's contract victims takes off a life. And his domain expansion attacks just straight up everywhere on her body. When Yuji fought Sukuna, Sukuna used a basic cleave attack on on him, which alone made 10 different slashes. Now, it isn't really mathematically possible to calculate how many lethal slashes would be hitting Makima every second. To put that into perspective, if she was taking 100 lethal slashes every second, it would still take multiple days for her to die. Just to give an idea of how big a number 126 million is. So you can make the argument that Malevolent Shrine isn't enough to just finish her off by the time Sukuna can't use domain expansion anymore, although he can use Malevolent Shrine multiple times. But by the end of it, it would have killed any devil she brought out to defend herself, and Sukuna still has options of attack, such as his cursed tool Kamutoke, which can shoot powerful electricity at his opponents. The other advantage that Sukuna might have is his space-cutting slash, and I find this attack really interesting because you could argue that it would bypass Makima's Prime Minister contract. You see, Sukuna's slashes don't quite work like normal slashing attacks. Sukuna has to assign a target to them and then they cut that target. So when he cuts through space, he is making the target the world itself. The space around them is the target, not directly his opponent. So you could make the argument that this would bypass Makima's contract because she isn't the direct target of the attack. Which brings us to an interesting question about Makima's contract. How much does intention really matter to it? Option 1 is that this attack would work on Makima because she is technically being attacked indirectly, not really making it an attack against her. Option 2 is that this doesn't matter since Sukuna would still be intending to attack her with this. The only example we have of an attack being an exception of the rule is Denji overriding the contract, although he does this not by being indirect, but just by not having the intent of attack. He killed her by having a different perception of what he's doing. So we know that intention does matter here, but we just don't know if Sukuna's world-cutting slash would work. That part is really up for debate, I just really thought it would be worth mentioning. Now I'm sure I'm gonna get plenty of comments in favor of Makima too, which is fair. Some stuff is rather vague with her. If you want to argue that she's strong enough to finish Sukuna off with that internal attack, feel free, go off. That just reinforces my point that this is an extremely boring fight either way. Either you think Sukuna ends it with domain expansion or his world-cutting slash, or you think Makima just endures it all and whittles Sukuna down in return. And in either interpretation, no character is doing any kind of interesting counterattack. Makima wouldn't even get to use her whole arsenal since it would just get torn apart. So yeah, that's why I'm not making a whole project on this, I just find it kinda boring. But that's about all I have to say on the matter for now. Let me know who you think wins and why. I can see it going either way, to be honest. I did kind of lie about it being a one-sided slaughter at the beginning. There is definitely interpretation there. Although I guess either way, depending on your interpretation, it is a one-sided fight. Regardless, if you liked the video, do please show it by liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see ya in the next video. Take care and have a good one.